Hello. The focus of today's video um, is a vintage LED lamp that I think is quite interesting for many reasons, and I hope you will enjoy seeing it. First of all, let me talk a bit about the idea we have over here. OSRAM, Philips, and other major manufacturers have been releasing period accurate vintage lamps. These lamps are quite interesting for a couple of reasons. First of all, they show how a typical lamp would look back then. Of course, with some obvious differences. We don't have filament lamps, we have LED lamps that of course are shaped specifically in order to look like a vintage lamp. On the other side, what matters more is that the styling of the lamp and the light being cast are quite nice. And I will show you a bit what's the concept that we see created through this product. I have to say that the most obvious applications are probably in restaurants, cafes, or any other such place where a specific atmosphere must be created. What has to be said is that these lamps, compared with previous products, ones that were released, I think, in the first half of the 2000s, if I remember correctly, are much more energy efficient because they do not use carbon filaments, they do not use tungsten filaments, they are just using LED. So the energy consumption is very low, the heat being released is very low, so there are many advantages to using such a lamp. And of course, they are also quite cheap because they can be effectively manufactured on the same product lines as your typical LEDs. Of course, they are manufactured in much lower quantities. But overall, I think they are very nice. Alright, so let me show you the lamp. This is the lamp itself. It's quite large in many respects. I think if you must have a way to compare it with your typical devices around, I think that probably you should be thinking about roughly cake box. The lamp's length, I think, is around 10 centimeters, so it's quite large. The width, as it seems to be, probably around 5 centimeters, so it's quite a large lamp. There is also, I think, a special coating on the inside that makes it look slightly brownish. Of course, this is quite a stylish lamp, and as you can see, there are two LED filaments on the inside, on the left and on the right side. I don't know if those lamps have been manufactured with more LED filaments, because I have not seen quite enough of them to make this assessment. On the other side, if you look closely on the picture, you're going to notice that there are more such LED filaments. But of course, this is a low wattage lamp. It's 2.8 watts, so you have to think that each LED filament is probably around 1.5 watts each, 1.4 watts. Alright, the cap is your typical Edison screw. It's E27. I'm pretty sure there are also other caps being used for other countries, like the bayonet cap for Britain and other areas of the world, other countries that do have the same typical cap. And it also has this dimple on this protrusion actually on the top of the lamp. And if you look closely over here, you may notice near the base that there is some circuitry in here. So it's not a lamp that uses your classical resistor based voltage regulation, which means that the light quality is quite nice. It also looks quite stable, and overall I think it's nice. We will also see the lamp plugged, but let me show you some other details I would like to make a note of. So let me place the lamp like this so that you can still admire it, and let me present some of the facts. As you can see on the box, the lamp is made to look like a 1906 lamp. The wattage is not very high, it's 2.8 watts. However, the light output is plenty. If you see over here, you may notice 220 lumens. Think about it, this is higher than your typical 15 watts incandescent lamp. This is quite a good amount, so for decorative purposes I don't think it's too harsh. What matters much more is the color temperature, 2400 Kelvins. This is a much warmer light than your typical light bulb or your typical LED lamp or fluorescent lamp replacement. Those are typically made at 2600 Kelvins or 3000 Kelvins. So the light is considerably yellower than your typical lighting source. The color rendering index is 80, which is a good value. Actually, you can typically find just about any lamp being released today having at least a color rendering index of 80, which means that typical fabrics or typical materials look reasonably well in this light. In general, you can think about wood as being the most difficult to make a proper appearance, but also there are some fabrics that are generally rendered quite well if the color rendering index is not too low. But I think it's your typical lamp, so no major remarks over here. The lamp obviously starts very quickly. This is typical for a LED lamp, nothing new. The lamp does not support dimming. Yes, it's true. Most lamps do not support dimming because the electronic circuitry they have is not really suited for such operation. Even if the lamp had resistors, it would not have operated perfectly on dimmers. But this is not, I think, most of the time an issue. You can clearly understand why things are as such. Creating a lamp that works well with dimming circuits requires a different internal construction, a different circuitry. So this is the reason that most lamps do not have it. And also dimming circuits are not that popular. And as time goes on, they are going to be even less popular because most new installations do not have such features. And the tendency is not towards having mains voltage switching, but making the change directly by communicating with the lamp circuitry, which is also much more efficient. So dimming is not going to be an issue in the future, I think. Next, the lamp's lifetime, 50,000 hours. 50,000 hours is your typical LED lamp life. Of course, it's not a high value. LED lamp circuits and the LEDs themselves could probably live up to 60,000 hours, but manufacturers typically aim for something in between 50,000 hours and 25,000 hours as a way to justify their price point and their marketing considerations. Ultimately, efficiency may be higher at in some cases if the lamp is going to be operated with less current, of course, if the internal circuitry is also efficient. But in general, they do not strive to do such products because they sell already well as is. There is no regulation that currently forces them to do otherwise. And on the other side, consumers also do not have a major reason to look for lamps that have longer lifetimes. And I don't think that the value itself is that bad. 50,000 hours is presented over here as 15 years based on a typical usage time of around 3 hours. This is the typical industry standard. Is being used on many lamps and has been used for decades, I think, as a consideration for a lamp's typical lifetime. Also, I don't think that there is something inherently bad with having such a lifetime, because your typical lighting fixture will probably be replaced in 10 or 15 years. So I think that having a lamp that lives roughly as long as your lighting fixture is going to be enough. The power on off switch count. I see over here 100 thousands. The value is not bad. You can probably go to around 500,000, even 1 million, but it depends how much you have to change your internal circuitry in order to accommodate such a large number of switches. In typical applications, this high number of switches is only expected on lamps that are placed in bathrooms, for instance, because then they are going to be switched, I think, around 30 times or even 100 times each day. So in that case, the number of switches is probably going to be the reason why this lamp may fail. However, this is a typical figure being given by the manufacturer. It may not necessarily translate into your lamp dying after a specific amount of switches. It just means that it's most likely dead by the time it reaches that value. I think that the statistic they give is around 70% of the lamps are already are also working by the time they reach this number. So 30% of the lamps have been dead by the time they reach the specified lifetime of 50,000 hours. All right, the typical operating range, the temperature, minus 20 degrees, 40 degrees Celsius. This is typical. However, you have to think about one other aspect. Of course, in the case of this lamp, it's a non-issue. Some of these lamps may be used in enclosed fixtures, and in that case, the typical temperature that the lamp has around is going to be slightly higher, which means that probably the internal circuitry is going to be more stressed. In general, with LED lamps, the less, and with electronic circuitry, the less temperature around the lamp, the better, because there are some components like capacitors, semiconductors that are having higher stress at higher temperatures. Of course, this value I think is more than enough. With such a lamp that dissipates 2.8 watts and probably half that amount of power is being released as heat, with such a large lamp, I don't think there is a real issue, even in an enclosed fixture. Of course, the lamp's cap is not a very good heat conductor, because it's being, well, it may be a very good heat conductor, but the surface itself being enclosed on the lamp's base means that heat can accumulate in this area, especially if the lamp is used in the base up position, which is probably the most likely one. But still, I don't think that the heat that is going to be trapped over here is going to be as large as in order to create such a problem with the lamp's life. So I don't think this is an issue. And going further, your typical operating voltage and the lamp's base cap. Over here, you can also notice some different lamp shapes. And it's true, I have seen, I think, this lamp shape as being quite popular because the spherical lamp looks very nice by itself. It's actually a showpiece, just like this one. Of course, the first one and the one you see purchased over here is quite nice. It's a good balance between a lamp that is overly large and one that is not having a shape that can be distinguishable enough. For instance, with such internal construction, I think that the lamp looks finer on a shape that is this one that looks like a pear to me, and the spherical one than on the one that is cylindrical. However, there are filaments that can look very well in this case. And the elliptical bulb, I think, is not that popular. There were some high intensity discharge lamps that had this lamp shape, and it's quite nice, although I'm not entirely sure if the filament shape can really make a very nice combination or assortment with the bulb shape. They are not probably that well suited together. Alright, the lamp's power I already mentioned. The energy efficiency is your typical A+ standard. It's not bad. I have to say one important fact even today. Some people may not be aware of the fact that OSRAM is not the manufacturer anymore. OSRAM is a brand that has been held by Siemens, and I think there was actually a consortium that included Siemens, but the brand itself was sold some years ago to a company. Yes, it was the brand was outsourced and bought, I think, by some investors, probably banking backed investors, an investment group, and this new entity was created, LEDVANCE, in order to further sell and manufacture such lamps. Of course, these lamps probably are not manufactured by LEDVANCE. Probably they are being outsourced, or some of the lamps are outsourced. I'm not entirely sure what happens. However, it's your typical manufacturer. I don't have any major gripes with this. Philips also sold the lighting division, so nothing new over here. What else can I say? Those are the typical information being provided. The lamp is manufactured in China, nothing new. There was also a special website created, edition1906.com. I'm not entirely sure if the website is still available. I can check it for you. And this is the typical package you see. It's a carton box. It's not bad. I think it's very nicely styled. It looks good also on shelves. So I think they had a major achievement with the product and packaging as well. All right, let me show you the lamp being lit and see if we have something to add to what I said previously. All right, so first of all, the base is already plugged. I recommend against using such way to present the lamp, but in this case it's faster because I don't need to plug it in a socket. But for safety reasons, you should never do such a thing. However, I'm going to screw it gently and it should be lit in a short while. Okay, right now let me see how we can make the lamp look slightly normal. I'm not entirely sure way to make it look somewhat. There is going to be, of course, a compromise, because ultimately the lamp itself is quite bright, and the overall area that is being lit is not going to be is going to be quite dark, of course, due to the intensity that is that the lamp has in this central area. All right, let me show you how the packaging looks. Of course, previously I think you already understood the fact that it was being lit by daylight. Right now it's being lit by the lamp. The light color is quite warm, as you notice. It's quite yellowish. I think that the way in which the light is being cast is quite nice. However, as you see reflections over here, I'm not entirely sure if there wasn't a way to avoid them by having a better design, but however, I think it's quite nice. If you look closely, I think that I may also need to, yes, to change the exposure, to lower it. And I'm going to show you exactly why I did such a thing. Right now you can see the filaments. I think that they look quite nice. I will bring them closer so that, sorry for the knocking. I think they look quite nice. The light is being quite uniformly cast by the LED filament. This is typical, nothing new, nothing spectacular. This technology has been used for quite some years in LED lamps. However, those reflections are normal. On the other side, reflections being made by the lamp's cap, I think are less pleasant. However, we don't have too much to say. The glass is quite nice. I don't think it's made in any way that could be unpleasant. However, the protrusion in the top, I think it's not that great due to the reflections it causes. But overall, I think the lamp looks quite nice. I don't think I can show you much more than what I already did with this lamp. So I hope you have quite a good understanding of what you can expect by purchasing such a lamp. If I recommend it, yes, I think it's a great lamp, especially if you like to collect lamps that have a vintage look to them, or if you have some installation in your hotel, restaurant, cafe that can make a very good case for showing such a lamp and creating a specific atmosphere. It's good also in homes. However, in most fixtures, I don't think it's a shape that can be quite well accommodated. However, I think that it's a good lamp. The price, I think it was less than $15 or euros, somewhere around $10. I don't remember exactly. The lamp has been purchased, I think, more than a year ago. It's quite nice. I wanted to show to you, and I hope you enjoyed seeing it. So thank you very much for watching, and if you like, please subscribe, and probably other videos that also cover lighting sources are going to be present. You can also find them on the website. There is quite an extensive catalog of lamps. I had more success with Philips lamps. However, some of OSRAM lamps are also featured on the website, and you can find detailed specifications and some reviews, observations that I made about them. And I also suggest you to see how a typical lamp catalog would look. I made another video long time ago, in actuality a series that I started around 1 month ago, that has many videos showing how a typical lighting catalog would look and what kind of information is provided there, and I also make some comments about it. So I hope you find this video interesting, and as I said, thank you very much for watching.